Hi everyone, welcome back. It's been a really long time, but guess who's visiting? It's been a while. I will just catch you up real quick. My last few rotations have been very exciting. I had an ophthalmology rotation where I actually got to do a lot of the tests. So at the beginning of every ophthalmology appointment at the university teaching hospital, the doctors will have the fourth year go in and do a Schirmer tear test to check tear production. They'll do a fluorescein dye test to see if there's any stain uptake on any corneal ulcers. They'll take pressures in the eyes, and then they'll also do just a normal ophtho exam where they check reflexes and stuff like that. And I actually got to do a lot of those. So it was very, very hands-on and very interesting to learn about because eyes kind of fascinate me. After ophtho, I was on a farms rotation, which was oddly one of my favorite rotations. I did not think that I would like working with farm animals as much as I did. We worked on learning about the poultry industry, which was fascinating. I did not know as much about just anything in the farms world, so to say, as I thought I did. I guess I didn't really presume to know a lot, but it's very extensive. We also did work with sheep. We were able to catch them, do full examinations on them, draw some blood, and we flipped them. You sit them up on their butt. That was fun. We worked with heifers, which are female cattle that have not calved before. We did full exams on them as well, drew some blood from their tail vein. The funnest part of that was trying to do a dental exam. I decided that I was going to pick a rather large heifer to try and wrestle her head around. That was not a good idea. They were in a head gate, but trying to open her mouth and pull her tongue out so that I could see her teeth was just another story. Luckily, I was able to actually complete the task on a smaller heifer, but my pride was a little damaged just because I chose such a huge heifer to do that with. For this rotation, we also got to go over to the dairy farm that the university owns, and that was interesting as well because, again, I did not know anything hardly about the dairy industry, and we learned about the different aspects of how that goes as far as keeping the cattle healthy, the cows' needs, and if they were having any problems, they showed us kind of how they determine if they're on medicine and if their milk can't be used and that kind of stuff. So there's this whole world that I didn't even know existed. We're in the teaching hospital. We actually got to see cases where a lot of cows had lameness in one of their limbs, which is a common problem in large animals, cattle and horses as well. But those cases we didn't actually have a lot to do with. We saw more cases, or at least I saw more cases that had to do with GI problems, where I learned a lot about the ruminant GI anatomy, which we haven't covered GI anatomy yet. I'll probably get that next semester in anatomy, but I learned so much about the four compartments of the ruminant stomach and which one does what and which one usually causes problems, and we saw some really cool surgeries as well. So farms was surprisingly lots of fun. After that, this past week, I just had my equine rotation, which was also lots of fun. We saw lots of lameness exams. As I said, a lot of problems in horses. They come in with a lame leg or multiple legs, and it's an extensive process to determine which leg it is, what part of the leg it is, if it's more than one leg. So that was interesting because I can see a horse trot up and down the hallway multiple times and I could never see the lameness because I'm so new to this, and the doctors are like, oh yes, that horse has a right front limb lameness, and I'm like, okay, whatever you say, doc. But then they go from just testing to see, watching the horse run and see which part of their leg is lame, or which leg is lame, and then to determine which part of the leg it is by doing nerve blocks and such, or ultrasounds. And we had a horse in yesterday that was there all day. So it can take a while. The other main problem we saw with horses in the clinic was also GI related. A lot of the time it's just colic, which is generic GI upset. A lot of the time, again, those have to go into surgery. So we saw a couple of those along with some arthroscopies on different joints and areas, which was really kind of cool. It was a little tiny image on a screen of what was happening inside this little hole, basically, where they cut out all this tissue to make the joint a better place for the animal. We learned a lot about doing exams on these animals in each rotation, which is really nice because it's gonna be the same systems. So you're gonna start nose, head to the tail, make sure you're looking at the eyes, ears, all that jazz. But it's different on different animals, obviously, because ruminants have 4 stomachs and a dog has 1. So it's just interesting to be able to do some sort of comparative anatomy, like, yes, this animal has a heart. So a dog, you can listen straight on their sternum to their heartbeat, but on a cow or a horse, you have to listen on the 2 different sides because their hearts are angled differently. So small things like that, quite interesting. So the horses at the teaching hospital this last week actually were due for vaccines and deworming, and our rotation, we were allowed to, under supervision of course, to actually do exams on these horses, vaccinate them instead of, usually previous rotations will inject saline. Horses get those injections intramuscularly instead of subcutaneously like you do for dogs and cats and cows sometimes. But we actually got to do vaccines on them and do oral meds, which is harder on a horse than on a dog. Maybe not a cat. Cats are kind of hard to fill sometimes. But it was fun and it was very exciting. And then we got to write up the SOAP, which is subjective, objective, and then kind of what your plan is and your assessment for the future. As far as if they need a dental or vaccinating for next year, or we didn't have enough dewormer for everyone quite yet, so we put in there for some of the horses saying that they would need dewormer in a couple weeks when that came in. Looking into the future, I have a small animal physical exam rotation, so I won't be doing anything in the clinic next week, but I'll be working with my puppies. They get to come into the clinic or into the learning facility and actually be practice dummies and have exams done on them by all of us first year students. And then the week after that, I have my surgery rotation. I've heard awesome things about surgery rotations, so I'm quite excited for that. Just as an update on my wildlife experiences for you, I sadly am here to announce, so to say, that Frida is no longer with us. She just continued to have more and more problems, and when we'd get one problem fixed, she'd come up with another one, and then overall her mandible, her jaw, just wasn't healing. It was actually getting worse, and we just didn't think it was humane to keep her in captivity any longer, and she was not going to be able to survive on her own if we released her. So I'm sad because she's been with us since the very beginning of the semester, which is when I started working or volunteering at the wildlife clinic. So sadness, but she is in a better place because she's no longer suffering. As usual, if you have any questions, feel free to comment below. I will get back to you as soon as I can, and we'll catch you next time. Jazzy got your toy. Get your frog. Get your frog. Say bye, girls. Bye, Taylor. Say bye.